I always thought that nearly a quarter century of marriage meant something. I believed that love, loyalty, and partnership grew stronger with time. But that illusion shattered the night I saw her creeping into the house at 1 a.m. Hair messy, dress bunched up around her legs, and eyes that flashed not with guilt, but with irritation that I caught her. She had no idea that she was about to awaken a version of me she'd never seen. My name is Grant Pearson. I'm 49, and for over 2 decades I poured every ounce of myself into building Pearson Precision Tackle, a specialty fishing gear company that I started from scratch. My hands were calloused from years of honest work, and my pride rested in the brand I created. For the longest time, I believed Maureen, my wife, shared that pride with me. But loyalty, I would learn, isn't always part of the package. That Thursday night, I was supposed to be away at a conference in Portland, but a plumbing mishap at the venue forced a last-minute delay. Instead of calling Maureen, I thought I'd surprise her. Maybe we could have a rare, quiet evening, just the two of us. When I pulled up to the house, her car wasn't there. I assumed she might be at one of her boutique events. Vintage Revival, her fashion project, had become her world lately. She'd been laser-focused on growing its online brand, talking nonstop about hashtags and aesthetics. I went inside, cracked open a beer, and waited. An hour passed, then another, then another. I checked her boutique's Instagram. No events. I texted. No reply. Called, straight to voicemail. The longer I waited, the tighter the pit in my stomach became. Something was off. Really off. At exactly 12:47 a.m., headlights lit up the living room. Her car. I turned off the lamp and sat silently in the shadows, heart pounding like a war drum. She walked in, not drunk, just too confident. Her hair was styled in a way she hadn't worn for me in years. Her dress, tight, elegant, was ripped at the seam near her hip. She was humming, carefree. Then she hit the light switch and froze. There I was, sitting in the dark, waiting. Grant, Jesus, you scared me, she gasped, hand to her chest. I thought you were in Portland, she stammered. Conference was postponed. Burst pipe, I said flatly. Where were you? Her eyes narrowed. You could have called, she replied coldly. I nearly had a heart attack. You didn't answer my question. She sighed and kicked off her heels. I was out with Jen. Drinks after a pop-up event. My phone died. A bold-faced lie. Smooth, practiced. You don't believe me? She asked, eyes searching my face. Should I? I asked back, voice cool but simmering. She raked her hands through her hair, like she was trying to mess it up, erase someone else's touch. I don't know what you expect me to say, Grant. I told you the truth. I stood and stepped into the kitchen, where the overhead light cut sharp lines across the countertops. Call Jen, I said. She scoffed. It's almost 1 a.m., don't be ridiculous. Exactly my point. Call her. Her face hardened. I don't need to prove anything. When did you become so controlling? That word, controlling, hit me like a punch. In all our years together, I had never tracked her phone, never questioned where she went. Until tonight. This isn't about control, I said calmly. It's about respect. Something you clearly lost. She laughed. A bitter, cold sound. One late night. And suddenly our marriage is meaningless? You sound desperate. I lowered my voice. Who is he? Her expression flickered. She paused, then deflected. There's no he. You're paranoid. She turned to head upstairs, but I stepped in front of her path. I didn't touch her, but made it clear she'd have to physically confront me to pass. Your dress is torn, I said. She instinctively looked down, hand flying to the tear. Caught it on a chair at the bar, she snapped. Jesus, Grant. What's gotten into you? 23 years, I said, voice calm. That's what's gotten into me. And now I want the truth. Her eyes narrowed, and then it came. You want the truth? I'm suffocating. This marriage? It's stale. You've buried yourself in your fishing business and stopped seeing me. I staggered back a step, not physically, but emotionally. And that makes it okay to come home smelling like someone else's cologne? I asked. She flinched. She didn't know I'd noticed. Not my brand, I added coldly. Never has been. I want a name. She straightened her back. His name is none of your business. But at least he sees me. And with that, she turned and climbed the stairs. I didn't follow. I sat back down in the dark, in a home that suddenly didn't feel like mine, and listened to something inside me crack. Not my heart. That would break later. What I felt in that moment was respect dying. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat alone in my workshop, just behind the garage, running my fingertips across the smooth blank of a custom rod I had been working on for weeks. My mind, once clouded with disbelief, began to clear with every wrap of thread, every measured turn of the vise. Craftsmanship had always helped me think. The discipline, the precision, it left no room for emotional chaos. And by sunrise, I knew what needed to be done. This wasn't a sudden betrayal. No, this was a slow unraveling that had been happening for years. I just hadn't been paying close enough attention. When I finally walked into the kitchen that morning, Morin was already there, dressed sharply for work in tight black slacks and a top that plunged deeper than I was used to seeing. It was obvious the woman standing before me wasn't the same one who had once spent nights helping me package rods in our garage. She didn't even look up. "Coffee's fresh," she said, scrolling through her phone like everything was normal. "We need to talk," I said, pouring myself a cup. "I'd really rather not," she answered flatly. "You were acting paranoid last night. And honestly, it wasn't attractive." I set the mug down a little harder than I meant to. 23 years together, and you think you can brush this off like a bad date? Her eyes lifted, full of irritation. "What do you want from me, Grant?" "The truth," I replied. "Just once, no dodging, no spin." "There's no game here," she said, brushing her hair behind her ear. "I stayed out with a friend. You blew it out of proportion." I leaned back against the counter, watching her carefully. "How long has it been going on?" A flicker of tension crossed her face. "There's no it, Grant." "Fine," I said, crossing my arms. "Then let me rephrase. How long have you been sleeping with someone else?" She stood abruptly, nearly knocking over her chair. "I don't have to sit here and take this." "No," I said quietly, "you don't. But walking away just confirms what I already know." She grabbed her purse like it was a weapon and raised her voice. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You've been so obsessed with your fishing business you didn't even notice me fading away. So instead of telling me," I said calmly, "you found someone to replace me." Her silence was deafening. Finally, she spoke, cold, clipped. "His name is Cody." I stared at her, every syllable like a hammer to the chest. "He's 29, she added. "He works with me, models for the boutiques page. And he makes me feel alive again." 29. I didn't say anything for a few seconds, trying to swallow the truth of that number. Almost 2 decades younger. A kid. "How long?" I asked. 3 months, she said, watching me like a hawk. "Maybe it's a phase. Maybe it's something else. Either way, it happened." No remorse. No apology. Just facts. Like she was updating a sales report. "Does he know you're married?" I asked. She hesitated, then answered, "Yes. And he doesn't care. He understands me." That last part, the implied comparison, cut deeper than any of it. I nodded slowly. "I'll be moving my things to the guest room today," I said. She blinked, clearly stunned. She had expected drama. Yelling, pleading, maybe even threats. Not this. Not cold resolve. "Just like that?" she asked. "Not just like that," I corrected. "This is after 3 months of betrayal and a marriage where you couldn't even be honest for a single night." I walked past her without another word. She didn't stop me. She didn't ask me to stay. That weekend passed in near silence. Morin claimed she was at the boutique, but I didn't ask. I didn't care. What mattered now wasn't where she went. It was how I was going to protect everything I had built. By Monday morning, I'd already reached out to James Harrington, one of my oldest fishing buddies, and, more importantly, one of the best divorce attorneys in Oregon. We met for coffee. His tone was blunt. "She cheated. But Oregon doesn't care. It's a no-fault state. The court's only concern is asset division." He leaned in. "You need to document everything, protect your business, and most of all, don't move out." That afternoon, I locked myself in my office and started pulling financial records. Every receipt, every ledger. 23 years of a shared life meant our finances were tangled. But my company? That had always been mine. And luckily, I kept my records cleaner than a surgeon's scalpel. When Morin came home, I was surrounded by paperwork. She walked in, set down her keys, and gave me a once-over. "Spring cleaning?" she asked lightly. "Something like that," I replied without looking up. "How was work?" "Busy." She had the stacks of paper. "What's all this?" I met her gaze. "I've spoken with James Harrington. He'll be handling the divorce." Her face went pale. "You're already filing?" "You expected what exactly?" I asked. "That I'd pretend this didn't happen?" She stepped closer. We could try counseling. Talk about things. Take time. Let me ask you one thing, I said. Do you love him? She looked away. It's not about love, she muttered. That's worse, I said. At least if you loved him, it would mean something. You're being cruel. No, I said. I'm being honest. Something you've clearly forgotten how to be. She stormed to the liquor cabinet and poured herself a heavy glass of whiskey. So what now? She asked bitterly. You're going to destroy everything over one mistake. 3 months of lies and sneaking around isn't one mistake, Morin. I replied, still calm. You made a series of choices. I'm just reacting to them. She took a long sip and narrowed her eyes. So that's it. You burn everything down. No, I said, gathering my documents. I'm preserving what still has value. Your business, she said with a mocking laugh. Of course. Among other things. You can't afford to buy me out, she challenged. I'm entitled to half. I paused and looked at her directly. You're entitled to half of our marital assets, yes. But Pearson Precision Tackle isn't one of them. She blinked. Excuse me. I opened a drawer and pulled out a copy of the prenuptial agreement. Your father said it was unnecessary. You signed it anyway. And I kept it. Turns out, it's still valid. She stared at the document like it was written in a foreign language. That's ancient, she snapped. No way that holds up. It does, I said. James confirmed it this morning. It specifically protects any business assets I brought into the marriage. And Pearson existed long before our vows. For the first time in days, her composure cracked. You've been planning this, she accused, voice shaking. No, I said, rising from the table. You did. The moment you chose someone else, you set this in motion. 3 days later, I received a call from a number I didn't recognize. Is this Grant Pearson? The voice asked nervously. Speaking, I answered. This is Vanessa. I work at Vintage Revival. I think we need to talk. We met at a quiet coffee shop 2 towns away, far enough that Morin wouldn't run into us. Vanessa looked young but serious, hands wrapped tightly around her cup. I shouldn't be doing this, she whispered. But what's happening isn't right. What is happening? I asked carefully. She took a breath, gathering courage. Cody, he's not just modeling. He's using your wife. Living off her. Flirting with other girls behind her back. And last week, I overheard him saying she needs to secure more assets before leaving you. I felt a weight settle in my gut. She mentioned your prenup? Vanessa continued. He got angry. Said she promised you'd be easy to beat in court. That she'd handle it. I stared at her. Do you know if she's making any financial moves? She nodded. She's been transferring boutique inventory, expensive vintage items, into a storage unit. Off the books. She's trying to make the business look like it's failing. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Vanessa looked up, eyes steady. Because my mom did the same thing to my dad. She cheated, took everything, and ruined him. He never recovered. And also, Morin's not who she pretends to be. She takes credit for our work. She talks down to us. I don't want to stay silent. I leaned back, processing the betrayal behind the scenes. There's more, Vanessa added, pulling a phone from her bag. She left this at the boutique yesterday. The passcode is your wedding anniversary. I thought that was ironic. I hesitated. I'm not going through her phone. You don't have to, she said. The messages are already open. Reluctantly, I looked, and what I read sent a chill through me. Cody and Morin had been discussing my collection, my custom rod collection valued at over $100,000, as if it were their property to liquidate. Plans to funnel money offshore. Even ideas about fabricating claims of emotional abuse to get around the prenup. I'll get this back to her, Vanessa said. But I screenshotted the important stuff. I'll email it. When she left, I just sat there, motionless. My wife of 23 years wasn't just cheating. She was plotting to financially gut me. I called James. We need to move fast, I told him. And I need a forensic accountant on the boutique's books. This isn't just divorce anymore. It's war. James didn't waste any time. Within days, his forensic accountant found enough red flags in the boutique's records to trigger alarms at a bank. Over $200,000 in high-value inventory had vanished from Vintage Revival's books in just a few months. The revenue didn't match the cash deposits. It was clear, Morin had been quietly bleeding her own business to death while preparing her exit strategy. Meanwhile, I turned all my focus to defending what mattered, Pearson Precision Tackle. I called a private meeting with my 3 most trusted team members. Mike, our longtime production manager, Ellie from customer accounts, and Jorge from procurement. These were people who had stood by me for years, and they deserved the truth. I'm heading into a rough divorce, I told them bluntly. My wife might come after the company, and I need your help keeping it secure. Mike didn't even hesitate. Whatever you need, boss. We sprang into action. I implemented new digital and physical security protocols, changed every password, relocated our highest value rods and materials to an off-site storage facility, hired an appraiser to professionally document every custom rod in my collection. Everything was photographed, logged, locked down. When I came home that night, Maureen was already there, dressed like she was auditioning for a fashion shoot. A sleek outfit, perfect hair, makeup done to perfection. But I saw through it now. It wasn't for me, it was strategy. We need to talk, she said in a voice sweetened with artificial calm. This divorce, it's escalating. Maybe we both acted too fast. I set my keys down and looked at her. What changed? She stepped closer. I've just been thinking. Maybe Cody was a symptom of problems we've ignored. Maybe we can fix things. What happened? I asked directly. Did Cody find someone with a thicker wallet? Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. That's cruel, she whispered. I'm trying to fix our marriage. No, I said. You're trying to fix your plan. The prenup didn't break. Or maybe the storage unit got found. Her face went white. What are you talking about? The audit of your boutique. The text messages between you and Cody. The fake abuse story. The inventory shuffle. Need me to go on? She recoiled like I'd slapped her. You're spying on me. I didn't have to, I said. You left a trail wide enough for a blind man to follow. She backed away, trying to regain control. You're bluffing. No, but I did talk to James. And if this keeps going, the DA might take interest too. Fraud is serious, Maureen. Her eyes welled with angry tears. What do you want? A clean break, I said simply. You keep the house. I keep my company and my collection. No court fights. No claims. We walk away clean. And if I don't agree, I looked her in the eye. Then I go public, with every piece of evidence. She stared at me, realizing, finally, that the version of me who once bent over backward to please her was gone. I'll have my lawyer call James, she said after a long silence. Good, I nodded. Let's get it done. The meeting was set in James Harrington's downtown office. Neutral ground, quiet, professional, impossible for anyone to manipulate. Maureen arrived in full battle gear, tailored outfit, stone face, and an attorney by her side. Patricia Dawson. I recognized her. She had a reputation in Oregon for turning even solid prenups into legal kindling. She was sharp, aggressive, and expensive. James, ever calm, greeted them both with courtesy, then cut straight to business. We've prepared a proposal, he said, sliding a folder across the table. It's fair. No games. Just clean closure. Patricia flipped through the document and scoffed. You expect my client to walk away from 23 years of marriage with this? James didn't flinch. She keeps the home and receives a cash settlement. Grant retains sole ownership of Pearson Precision Tackle and all business-related assets. Patricia leaned forward, her voice sharp. She helped him build that business. She's entitled to a share. James remained steady. We have clear documentation that Pearson Precision Tackle was fully operational and profitable before the marriage. The prenup reinforces that fact. Patricia's eyes narrowed. Prenuptial agreements can be overturned. We anticipated that argument, James said calmly, sliding over another folder. This one contains evidence of deliberate asset concealment by Mrs. Pearson, fraudulent behavior related to her boutique, and a documented conspiracy to fabricate abuse claims. Maureen's face drained of color as she read the first page. She whispered something to Patricia, who frowned deeply and said, "We need the room." Once they stepped out, James leaned back. They're rattled. They'll try to push back, but we've got them locked in. When they returned, Maureen wouldn't meet my eyes. Patricia had shed her attack dog tone and adopted something closer to realism. We're prepared to accept the bulk of your terms, she said. However, we ask for an additional $50,000 in settlement and continued health coverage for 1 year. James looked to me. I nodded once. Agreed, he replied. As the lawyers worked out the finer details, Maureen finally addressed me directly. You were always smarter than I gave you credit for. No, I replied, looking her in the eyes. You just didn't expect anyone to see past your performance. Her mouth tightened. Vanessa betrayed me, she muttered bitterly. No, I said softly. She chose honesty. Something you stopped choosing a long time ago. Morin grabbed her purse. You know what's ironic? Cody dumped me. Said I was too much drama. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I'm sorry it ended like this, I said honestly. She studied me. Are you really? Yes, I said. Because after everything, 23 years still deserved a better ending than this. There was something like regret in her eyes, but it vanished quickly, replaced again by that calculating glaze she wore like armor. The house need a new roof next spring, she said as she turned to leave. Just so you know. And then she was gone. Not just from the office, but from my life. 6 months after the ink dried on the divorce papers, I stood in the new Pearson Precision Tackle Workshop, a space I designed from the ground up, built not just to manufacture fishing gear, but to reflect a renewed purpose. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, catching the polished rods displayed along reclaimed wood panels. It didn't just feel like a workshop. It felt like peace. The front door chimed. Mike stepped in, carrying a shipment of rare components from Japan. Last box just came in, he said, setting it on the bench. We're officially locked and loaded for the expo next month. I nodded. Let's double our booth size. The custom fly rod line deserves its own spotlight. He raised an eyebrow. Heard anything from her? I didn't need clarification. According to folks we both know, she sold the house and moved to Phoenix. Something about a new job with a boutique chain. Mike gave a short nod, but said nothing more. The truth? Her old boutique had folded within weeks of our split. With the inventory gutted and reputation damaged, it never stood a chance. Better this way, I said, not out of spite, but because it was simply true. Later that day, the shop door opened again. Vanessa walked in, tablet in hand. After Vintage Revival went under, I offered her a full-time position managing Pearson's online presence and customer engagement. She'd proven not just loyal, but skilled, doubling our traffic and modernizing our digital reach. We just got a featured spotlight in Angler Monthly, she said. That limited edition series? Pre-orders are full through next quarter. I smiled. Good. Schedule a team dinner at Lakeside Grill. Friday. Let's celebrate. She nodded and left me to my work. I stayed late, crafting a new rod for one of our oldest clients. The rhythm calmed me. Each thread wrap, each polished stroke, another reminder that I was still capable of building beauty with my hands. That I hadn't lost that. That night, just as I was finishing, my phone buzzed with a message. James Harrington. Lunch tomorrow. Have something you'll want to see. The next day, we met at his usual steakhouse, corner booth like always. He didn't speak at first, just slid a folded newspaper clipping across the table. It was from the Phoenix Business Journal. Boutique files for bankruptcy amid allegations of fraud. Morin's name was buried in the second paragraph. She tried the same game, James said, sipping his coffee. Her new partners weren't as forgiving. I folded the article and set it aside. Not our concern anymore, I said. James studied me. You've changed. Because I stopped trying to save something that was already dead, I replied. My phone buzzed again. Order confirmed, international distributor account activated. Business was booming. I focused on what I do best, I told him. Turns out, that's all I ever needed to do. On the drive back, I passed the old neighborhood. For the first time in over 2 decades, I didn't feel the pull to turn down our old street. There was no curiosity left. At 49, I wasn't starting from scratch. I was building something new, with the lessons of everything that came before. And for the first time in years, I was finally free. A year had passed since the divorce when Pearson Precision Tackle was selected to showcase at the National Fishing Expo in Chicago. It was the biggest stage in the industry, and we were ready. Standing inside our polished booth, surrounded by handcrafted rods and displays that told a story of legacy and precision, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, pride unburdened by pain. A man in his 50s stepped up to one of our signature fly rods, turning it slowly in his hands. Exceptional balance, he murmured. Who designed this? I did, I replied, offering my hand. He shook it firmly. Thomas Reeves. I own a chain of high-end lodges across the Midwest. I'd like to carry these in every location. We talked details. When we shook hands again, I knew it was the biggest wholesale deal in our company's history. That's when I saw her. 3 booths over, thinner than I remembered, dressed down in modest clothes, Morin. She was talking animatedly to a vendor, Her gestures exaggerated, her smile strained. Her polished armor was gone. She looked human again. I thought about walking the other way, but when she saw me, the choice vanished. She walked over slowly, trying to appear casual. "Grant," she said. Her voice was smooth but cautious. "Heard your company would be here." I gave a polite nod. "Morin, didn't expect to see you in this industry," I added, keeping my tone professional. "I'm consulting now," she said, "working with Western Outfitters on their apparel line." A heavy silence fell between us. "I saw your feature in Business Monthly," she added. "Congratulations." "Thank you," I said. "How's Phoenix?" Her lips tightened. "Didn't work out. I'm back in Oregon now." I didn't bring up the bankruptcy or the fraud allegations. She already knew I knew. She shifted. "This new clothing line, it's a second chance. I'm learning." Before I could reply, Mike called to me from across the expo. "Client from Canada's here." I turned to her. "I have to go." "Of course," she said quickly. "It was good to see you." As I walked away, I realized something. I didn't feel angry, or sad, or even bitter. I felt nothing. She was simply part of a story I'd already finished. Later that night, alone in my hotel room, I reflected on the moment. Seeing her again had stirred far less emotion than I expected. Just clarity. That chapter was closed, and it didn't define me. A message lit up my phone. "Vanessa, Reeves, order confirmed. Team's celebrating back home." I smiled, replying with a thumbs up. I was flying back to a thriving business. A workshop that felt like home. A crew that felt like family. Everything I had now came not despite the betrayal, but because I rebuilt stronger after it. 2 years after the divorce, I stood on the deck of my lakeside cabin, casting a line into golden waters lit by the setting sun. The cabin, 20 acres of private shoreline, had once been a dream I shelved during the marriage. Now, it was my retreat, my sanctuary, and my testing ground for the newest tackle designs. As the line sailed across the water in a perfect arc, my phone rang. "James Harrington. Just checking in," he said. "That patent you submitted? Approved. Everything's greenlit for production." "Appreciate it," I said, reeling in slowly. "This reel's going to change the game." We handled some legal updates, and then James hesitated. "I ran into Morin yesterday," he said finally. "At the courthouse." My grip on the rod tightened slightly. "Oh, she asked about you," he continued. "Seemed genuinely curious. Said she hoped you were doing well." "And how's she doing?" "She's managing. That new job is stable, but nowhere near what she had with you. Western Outfitters isn't thriving. It's just treading water." I nodded. "Good to know. But that's her path now." After the call, I stayed outside, watching the water ripple with the last light of day. The stillness wasn't empty, it was earned. At 51, I had peace. And it wasn't the kind that comes from revenge or vindication. It came from hard work, painful honesty, and choosing growth over bitterness. The business had flourished beyond what I ever imagined. Pearson Precision Tackle now had a 15-person team, a global reputation, and a 6-month waiting list for our custom rods. But more than that, my passion had returned. Free from the weight of deception, I'd rediscovered what it meant to create with joy. Word about Morin still filtered in now and then. Cody had left her not long after our divorce, moved to California with someone new. She dated occasionally, but nothing ever lasted. Maybe she changed. Maybe not. I didn't feel satisfaction at her struggles. Just distance. We were two lives that once ran parallel until they diverged. A few weeks earlier, Vanessa had invited me to dinner. Not a date. Just two people who had survived the same storm in different ways. We laughed. Talked business. Talked life. There was no pressure. Just honesty. And a strange sense of ease. We agreed to take things slow. She knew me now. Not the version from the past, but the man I'd become. The kind who doesn't build revenge, he builds again. As dusk settled in, I cast another line across the water. The lure landed gently. No splash, just a quiet ripple that faded into calm. That's what healing had become for me. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady, just true. I had survived betrayal not by growing hard, but by staying deliberate, by living with intention. My legacy wouldn't be built on what Morin tried to destroy, but on what I chose to protect, preserve, and pass on. At the edge of that lake, watching stars shimmer above the water, I felt a rare certainty. This wasn't just peace. This was where I was meant to be. If you felt something while watching, Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful real-life stories every day.